Welcome to Femme and Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portela, and today we are going to Malone's. We're going to get drunk on pina coladas at Malone's. We're going to have a great time. All right, before we get started on today's quickie episode for the deal, chapters 11 through 20, we have some housekeeping notes. First and foremost, if you like the spiritual stuff that we're talking about on this podcast that we do every once in a while, I can't help it. It's just like how my brain filters reality. I have a new podcast coming out. It is called Third Eye View. It will be less current events like how we're doing now. We're covering Euphoria and The Deal and Margot's Got Money Troubles. That's all stuff that you can like sit down and watch and binge right now. This new podcast, Third Eye View, will not be that. It will be sometimes that, but it's going to focus more on the intersection of spirituality and pop culture. But instead of looking at pop culture as a reflection of like these feminist themes and how they're playing out in the world right now, Third Eye View is going to focus more on the spiritual concepts first. And the pop culture will sort of be the spine to support whatever those are. We're starting with the major arcana so that you can understand how tropes and archetypes and mythology that you experience in movies, TV shows, and books all the time across all of these different mediums, how they have just been derived from this experience of tarot. We'll talk a little bit about the history each week, the specific archetypes or mythology of each card. So we're starting sort of with the larger experience of tarot, the major arcana, but we will definitely be doing other stuff. We're going to be talking practical magic 1 and 2. Don't worry, we'll be talking about it on this podcast too. We're going to do tons and tons of stuff over on Third Eye View, but they'll be shorter episodes. They won't be as intense of a deep dive as we tend to go on this podcast. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more spiritual or conscious in its nature, then I would love for you to go listen to Third Eye View. It's coming out everywhere you get your podcast on May 6th. Other housekeeping notes here on Femme and Furious. Follow wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube for video podcasts. Go over to Substack for long form articles that support each episode of the podcast. Head over to the Patreon for group chats. Every time I post the episode in Patreon, I will always post a little poll with it so you guys can give your opinions about whatever it is I decide to talk about in each episode. I am just a dandelion in the wind, okay? I write an outline and then the episode just happens. I like black out and then I'm done recording. I hit done and I'm like, oh, okay, that was the episode. Of course, you can follow on TikTok and Instagram at Femme and Furious Pod. And let's dive in. Today's episode, Chic Peak. For this particular stretch of chapters of The Deal by Elle Kennedy, this is to prepare and support us for the TV show that's coming out on Amazon Prime this May. So this little run-up that we're doing will lead us right into the show. It's going to be a binge drop, and we'll do like a quickie episode recap. It'll probably be a longer kind of quickie. We won't go slay by slay because it's going to be too much, I think. But we'll see. We'll see kind of what happens. We'll see how the show is. The new trailer looked bomb.com. They really made Garrett a much more likable character, which I knew they would. They also made Justin this like sort of artistic, like grungy looking guy. I'm not gonna lie, if I saw that dude in the hallway, not that people cannot be multifaceted, but I would not look at that man and be like, wow, star football player. But I do like that Garrett seems a lot more likable, which I said last episode, there's 0% chance they're going to be able to take the amount of misogynistic and chauvinistic comments that Garrett makes and stuff them into a likable character on TV. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. So that's what we're doing today. We're doing chapters 11 through 20. So we're doing little bite-sized bits for this whole book. As far as trigger warnings go, we're talking about abuse. We're talking about sexual assault. Again, I am mentioning it this episode, but we're not going too deep into it. it's just a trigger warning for the book. So we're going to say it's a trigger warning for here, but we're not diving too deep into it today, talking about some abuse, but not like a crazy amount. As far as tropes and microtropes go, we've got one bed in this episode. We've got fake dating in this episode. I'm just a girl. I can't help it. These tropes work on me every fucking time. Every fucking time. Fake dating to me, I love a fake dating trope. One bed is fine. It's like perfectly fine. Fake dating to me is like the creme de la creme of tropes and microtropes. So let's talk about who's who, because we get some new introductions this stretch of chapters. We have Napoleon, who is Hannah's dog. We have Peaches, the best fucking name ever for a cat, which is Garrett's grandparents' cat. Devin, the drummer, Hannah's ex-boyfriend. And then we get introduced to Bo, who is on the football team, and he becomes really, really important, especially in Dean's book. So we've not heard the last of Bo yet. I love Bo so much. So let's dive into our key themes and key moments that have happened. So let's start with the idea of the cycle of abuse and the repercussions of the cycle of abuse. We get a lot more about Garrett's backstory during this episode. So Garrett's backstory kind of reframes his entire character, particularly the dynamic that he has with his father. We felt some tension, definitely episode 1, where we talked through chapters 1 through 10. But we're getting a lot more information from Garrett. We get a little bit of a download about his past. So when he admits that his mother's saving grace was that she died before she could witness his father redirect all of the abuse that she received from Phil onto Garrett, it puts you in the frame of mind that Garrett is constantly operating from. By the way, I'm just going to pause here for a second and say, shout out to NYX. Okay. Shout out to NYX. Their fat oil slick click. This is like my favorite talking tool. My hands are so busy and I'm so Italian. I just feel like I need something. So anyway, if you're watching, I'm not getting paid to say this. I wish I was. This is my favorite thing to talk with. It just makes talking and working through the podcast so much easier. Why? I don't know, but it does. So anyway, going back to Garrett, thank you for listening to my TED Talk about NYX. When we get this download about Garrett's past, it explains the emotional contradictions that he carries within him. And it gives a lot more clarity, especially when last episode he was saying things like, I look shiny like this pond that I used to skate on when I was a kid, but then like, when you get up close to it, there's all these skate marks and whatnot in it. And like, that's just me. Like, I look shiny on the surface, but there's all these marks underneath. And that kind of like raises your ears, right? Perks your ears up to be like, well, what does that mean, Garrett? So he's telling us like, hey, you need to look a little bit beneath the surface, which is not uncommon. Okay. For this type of man, this sort of overconfident persona that we get, right? This is like another type of trope where we get these men who are forward facing and then like really tender underneath or have a lot more emotional depth than we give them credit for, right? Like, I'm not just a dumb jock, but I'm happy to let everybody think that, which is what Garrett said last week when we were talking about him. So that idea of his overconfidence is just a defense mechanism to all of the things that he's clearly feeling about not only the loss of his mother and processing that grief and what it was to grow up with her, but probably some of the relief that he has that he doesn't have to protect her or look out for her. I mean, what a very grim, dark, like, thing to say, that her saving grace was that she died. That's telling you the extent of the abuse that's going on here. So the fact that Garrett possesses this machismo, right, is just a defense mechanism, as I think he copes with the relief that he feels that his mother has passed and he doesn't have to take care of her, the grief that he feels, and maybe even the guilt that he feels over her passing, you know, the loss of her, obviously, what it is to grow up without your mother, predominantly grow up without your mother. And then, you know, on top of it, having this father who not only is physically abusive with you, but puts this incredible, intense career pressure on top of you with hockey. So it's giving us a lot more about him. It makes him a much more empathetic character, someone you want to be able to sympathize with. And it lets us know that the avoidance of vulnerability that Garrett tends to dabble with isn't just because he's a 20-year-old, student athlete. It's part of this immense pressure that he feels to beat, quote unquote, his father. And in so many ways, this is also about him proving that he's a better man. So in beating him, like, I don't want to just be as good as him. I don't want to just achieve what he achieved. I want to be better than him. Is this way to prove that he is in every respect a better man, not just a better player. And I think that maybe that will help him also reclaim some of his power. We're talking about a man in Phil Graham that is a hockey legend, right? All of Garrett's teammates are like jealous over this relationship that he has, when Garrett like even says like they don't really know the extent of it. Like there's nothing to really be, thrilled about with him. So I think the fact that he's trying so hard to be better than his father isn't just about their personal fight for dominance. It has to do a lot with the social power that his father has in this hockey community. And by being the better player and by being the younger, newer, hotter, I'm the one that's getting the Stanley Cups now. I'm the one that's winning the Frozen Four. Like all of these things, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup yet, but like, the fact that he knows he's going to get drafted, the fact that he's, trying to outbeat his father's legacy is this gut punch about him trying to take away maybe this last semblance of power that his father might even have over him. Because if I'm the better player, then it's not even what does Phil Graham say about it, it's what does Garrett Graham say about it, So I think this makes Garrett's character much more interesting. And now we have two people who are commingling. They're deciding what their relationship is going to be. Right now it's like kind of purely academic, although we see it start to really switch in these couple of chapters. But, two people who are coming from very different types of abuse, and how their relationship is going to trigger some of the abuse and the PTSD that they have experienced. And in other ways, it's going to be very healing and very cathartic and give them a path and a person to move forward with. So, we haven't really like got quite there yet, but we're opening the door to that path of potential in this episode. I also just love that Garrett makes a comment about Peaches, and he's like, the grandparents' cat, Peaches, doesn't like my dad. Can't stand my dad, hates my dad, hisses at my dad, doesn't like my dad. And here's what I'll say. As I look on to my beautiful cat over there, I've got another one somewhere. Animals always know. You're never going to catch me on this podcast because I can only be myself. You are never going to catch me on this podcast not giving a cute creature or an animal credit where credit is due. Peaches is not even really in our story, but Peaches is a fucking hero to me because animals always know. And cats in particular have a completely different sense about vibes. I'm not saying dogs do or don't. I'm not against dogs. This is not dog slander. But as a cat person who owns two cats, one on my bed, one out doing his thing over there, you can see behind me if you're watching the video feed. I've got my two cosmic cats behind me, and then I've got this calendar that my grandma got me for Christmas because she was like, it was so cute to have cats on it. And I love a cat. I am a cat lady through and through. I'm an animal person in general. Cats know vibes different than dogs know vibes. It's not dog slander. It's just cat hype, okay? Cats know when someone overrides boundaries, and the cat will avoid that person. I have seen it with my own cats, but shout out to Peaches. We love you. We love a cozy creature. We love a cute creature on this podcast. And we will always have 10 toes down for a cute creature. Give me the cute creatures. We don't get enough of it on this podcast, to be honest, but like a Toothless, a Wally, a Baymax. Give me a cute creature. I will go to war. I ride at dawn for the cats and the cute creatures. All animals, really. But let's put cats at the front of the charge for me. Okay? Hey guys, we're just detouring today, okay? Sometimes a girl just needs to gab. And I've got a microphone and you guys are listening, so this is what we do. Okay, so let's keep going. Also in this theme of the ideas of abuse and the repercussions of abuse is Justin asking Hannah out. Now, this is not abusive, right? But equally an important moment because it talks about the way that abuse, especially sexual abuse or physical abuse, can register in your body. Hannah's immediate response to Justin asking her out is described as a pang of alarm that she feels in her body. And it highlights the way that her body responds to a perceived risk before she can even rationalize it. Here's what I will say about this. Ladies, gadies, and thadies, always trust your damn gut. Your body knows before you know, and your body will never lie to you. Your body will never, ever, ever lie to you. It might be programmed to respond a certain way because of lived experiences that you've had, and maybe that's what Tan is going through, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But your body is not lying. I once went out on a first date with a guy, and I immediately got vertigo. I felt like, did this guy drug me? And the only reason I knew that he didn't is because I didn't have any drinks, and he didn't get me any drinks, and I didn't have any drinks with him. There was no drinks involved, not even water. Your body knows. And after a while, I had been dating this guy. We had dated for, a couple months, less than a year, but like a couple months. By the end, I actually had hives all over my body to the point where I thought I had the chicken pox. And my friend was like, surely you've been vaccinated. And I said, I have been vaccinated, but I never got it when I was a kid. And she's like, you never got it because you were vaccinated. I said, I'm not really sure, but I could tell you right now, I've got a rash all over my body that looks like the chicken pox. And I sent her a picture and she's like, it does look like the chicken pox. She's like, are you sure you don't have shingles? I went to every doctor. They were like, it's not the chicken pox. It's not shingles. It's your body that fucking knows. Guess what? We broke up. Everything cleared up in my body. It was like it was never there. Your body knows. Your body understands before you understand. So when she says, I had a pang of alarm that I couldn't even process in this moment, I just ignored it because I didn't even know what it meant. Trust your gut. This is a subtle way that her body is trying to tell her, or her instincts are trying to tell her, that something is happening under the surface that she needs to pay attention to, even in situations that seem like they might otherwise be safe. Justin asking her out and whatever he's doing in this scene, despite the fact that he's maybe a little rude to the barista or whatnot, like, he's not doing anything that's perceived as like this huge massive threat, or like, maybe he's a little dickish, but like, there's nothing that's going on in this scene that should clue her in to feel anything other than excited and safe. And yet she doesn't. And because women are so often conditioned to ignore their instincts in order to forge these connections with men, that just tells her to put it on the back burner. Just put it on the back burner. You've been so excited about this. I don't care how excited you've been about this. Something about your gut is telling you it's wrong. This is not right. It's not a good vibe. You may never know why. If you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I've had an experience like this before. You may never know why. You may never get the clarity about why your body responded in that moment the way that it did. But I can promise you, your life will be better when you trust your body to tell you what's up. I think all the time about that story where the woman says, I met a guy, he was the most charming, wonderful person. He was so charismatic, all of this stuff. He was so great. He asked me out. And for whatever reason, my gut was that I needed to stay home and that I didn't want to go on this date. And it turned out that that man was Ted Bundy. Your body fucking knows. Trust your gut. Trust your motherfucking gut. All right, so let's talk about another major theme that sort of cycles around the drain, which is jealousy, which is a constant undercurrent of these 10 chapters. So let's dive into it. Earlier in this book, last episode, Garrett says to Hannah, people want what they can't have. To which he follows up, case in point, you want Justin. Can't have him, but you want him. Which, of course, is ironic because we will see in this stretch of chapters that jealousy runs through everyone's veins, especially Garrett Graham, who sees Hannah and Justin connecting at the party, which was the goal. That was the point. That was their deal. And he's like, I don't have to worry about Beau. The competition's over there. He's focused on Justin as a competitor. For Hannah's attention, he's jealous. Garrett Graham has reverse psychologied himself into having feelings for fucking Hannah. And speaking of psychology, okay, Psychology Today claims, although jealousy is a painful emotional experience, evolutionary psychologists regard it not as an emotion to be suppressed, but as one to heed, as a signal or a wake-up call that a valued relationship is in danger and that steps need to be taken to regain the affection of a mate or a friend. As a result, jealousy is seen as a necessary emotion because it preserves social bonds and motivates people to engage in behaviors that maintain important relationships. So every time we get a little pang of jealousy across these chapters, it is our characters experiencing the significance of the relationship in front of them. And some of these people have not even said out loud how important these relationships are to them. Like Garrett has not said to Hannah or vice versa that these are relationships that are important to them. In fact, they try to actively put them off as if they are not important to them. So the fact that jealousy is involved is a natural indicator to us that they are important. We already know this, right? But they're discovering it. Now, the article also differentiates jealousy and envy by saying jealousy and envy are similar feelings, but they're not the same. Jealousy always involves a third party seen as a rival for affection or attention. Now, I'll put the Psychology Today article in the show notes. So if you want to read a little bit more about it, it was just a very basic article on jealousy. So we have like in this loop of people that are jealous, we have Justin being jealous of Garrett. Then we have Kendall's very public reaction at the party to Garrett about Hannah, bringing Hannah as a date. We have Garrett confronting his own confusing feelings about Hannah. And all of this sort of puts Hannah at the center point of everyone's jealousy. You know, Justin is not jealous of Hannah, but Hannah's still in there. You know what I mean? So no matter which way the jealousy paths are crossing, Hannah is sort of like in the crossfire of it. Also in this stretch of chapters, we have Hannah walking in on Garrett and Teresa having sex. We have all of, Garrett's friends being like, don't go up there, sweetheart. Like, you're not going to like what you see up there. Almost making a joke out of it. And then we have Hannah's very complicated feelings about that. Like, she gets angry. She's angry for a whole lot of reasons, but she realizes that it's not a normal amount of anger, followed by this like use of jealousy as a form of coercion to get Hannah to kiss Garrett later on, only for Dean to walk in and Hannah's like, that didn't mean anything. He was just, bullshitting me. He doesn't think I can kiss well. And, Dean being the guy that he is, like, being like, all right, we'll get a second opinion. I love Dean, by the way. You're never going to hear Dean slander on this podcast. I fucking love Dean. I have a feeling that even though it's not the book order, Dean is going to get the second season of this TV show because Dean is baby. Dean is baby boy. I love Dean. Hannah immediately wants to distance herself from whatever she experienced after her kiss with Garrett. And because she has now kissed Dean with tongue, when Garrett and Hannah show up at the party, Garrett has this thought. The overpowering lust, however, is accompanied by a sense of crushing rejection, because clearly I was the only one affected by the damn kiss. If Hannah had felt something, even in the slightest, she wouldn't have stuck her tongue down Dean's throat 2 seconds later. Dean, one of my best friends. But she's not here with Dean tonight, now is she? Nope, she's my date. And we're here to make another guy jealous. Why can't I give in to temptation? This might be the only chance I get. So I plant a soft kiss on the side of her throat before whispering, "You're gonna be the center of attention tonight, babe. Smile and pretend you're enjoying it." Sidebar. Can't wait to see that on the show. Can't wait to see that on the show. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. He's coping with the fact that she had this moment in front of him with Dean. He's coping with the fact that they're there to make Justin jealous, even though it was his fucking idea, and he has feelings for her. So he's trying to make the most of it by taking advantage of the time that they have. And like, again, like using this platform of jealousy as a way to manipulate Hannah into doing what he wants, because that's what he wants to do. And just instead of just saying to her, I don't want to make another guy jealous. I have feelings for you, and I want you to go to this party with me because you want to be there with me. That would have maybe solved things for him much earlier on than pretending like they didn't have this deal going on and feeling jealous and like he needs to take advantage of the situation while he's got her for the evening. Then we have later on Logan's interaction with Hannah. Again, this idea of jealousy throughout these chapters. We have this particularly long hug, slightly prolonged hug that Garrett notes between Logan and Hannah. And it introduces another layer of interpersonal tension and major jealousy that's going on, particularly on Garrett Graham's end of the stick. These small moments accumulate. They are contributing to an atmosphere where Hannah, who has not been in this group long, has Dean hitting on her on stage after she sings. He's touching her bare arm. Okay? And Garrett's like, I gotta go in there and save her. Justin just asked her out. Garrett asks her out. Logan is interested in her. Like, multiple people in this friend group are fucking interested in Hannah. So we're like adding to this tension of this space where Hannah is constantly being desired by the people around her, especially Garrett. And he's just coming to terms with it. All right, another key theme, I think we'll have this probably every episode, the audacity of men, TM. Short little rant, but follow me here. This is a PSA to Garrett Graham. Do you need help? Do you understand what an emergency is? Like, hello, sir? He skips class for what he calls an emergency, which turns out to be helping John Logan recover a fake ID. Despite the fact that he's struggling academically. That is not an emergency. This is not an emergency. This choice undercuts his later claim that he can't afford distractions, especially when Hannah is the one being positioned as the potential distraction. Should I stick a flag in the ground and claim her as my girlfriend? I don't know. I don't do girlfriends. It's all just one big distraction. The irony is that Hannah is actually contributing positively to his life. She is helping him succeed academically, which, by the way, is helping him to fucking stay the team captain and play when he needs to play instead of getting benched like he would have if he didn't have her fucking help. Meanwhile, his own decisions create instability that he claims to be avoiding. Guess what? Maybe when you are fucking failing a class, you don't skip to go drive across the state to get a fucking fake ID for somebody, especially when that person has a fucking car. Does he end up passing the midterm? Yes. But the audacity, I simply cannot. Okay, let's talk about the key moments. We have Breaking Bad, which is like the first, I would say, key moment that we get. The evolution of Garrett and Hannah's relationship is built on the back of Walter fucking White, okay? This Breaking Bad marathon that they have takes their relationship from strictly academic straight into friends territory. It marks the beginning of them starting to have some feelings for each other, or maybe realize that they have more in common than they thought they did. Their friendship becomes official through proximity and shared interest and like good old fashioned quality time. They just spend the whole night together where it's like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. and she just sleeps over. And I certainly have not been there with a man where I've done that, but I've been there before with girlfriends where like all of a sudden you pop a show in or something like that and you're like, it's 4 a.m. Like we need to go to sleep. This is like real sleepover vibes. It's really giving girls at a sleepover. It's one of the very few moments that their connection isn't charged with this like power dynamic, banter, one-upping thing that they've got going on. It's where they finally start to have some common ground together as they like fall into the rhythm of the show and the process of the show, which I love, by the way. This is why I have a pop culture podcast. Pop culture fucking brings people together, and pop culture is bringing together Hannah and fucking Garrett, and I love it. We then have the party as like the next big moment. So the party itself becomes a place where like all of these tension points from the first stretch of chapters up until now kind of come to a head. So we have Hannah's decision not to drink, her explanation that she gives to Garrett being rooted in fear about being roofied. It reveals how deep her trauma informs her behavior in social spaces, which we knew already. But when Garrett picks up on the vibes, she ends up deflecting the question, which is really, I think, critical in this moment. She lies. She doesn't tell a full-on lie, but she does not tell him the truth. She does not admit that it was her. So she says something happens to her friend. And I think this is interesting, because in the beginning of the book, she's like, I was raped, but like, I'm not defined by this thing. And I'm done all of my healing and like, it's over and it's fine. I think you can get to a place where that is true, because I was sexually assaulted, and I would say at this point it's almost like a weird memory that exists in my brain, but it tenders like no like visceral response in my body anymore. But she's not there yet, right? So the fact that she lies about it, I think, is just telling you where she is in the processing of her healing journey. And this is not a judgment, by the way, of where she is in her healing journey. It's just a reflection of where she claims to be versus where she is. And it filters into this theme of the repercussions of abuse, but specifically in these party settings where she's experiencing it the most, or where she's having that tension in herself the most. Garrett also senses that she's not quite being truthful here, which I think is important for us because he does possess a lot of acute awareness and a lot of depth, even if he presents as somebody who is chauvinistic, as Hannah so elegantly says during this stretch of chapters. We have Garrett confronting Kendall that she's basically overreacting because you don't even know me. You never even got to try to know me. Don't worry, we'll talk about that in a little bit. We have Hannah coming to his defense in the party, being like, hey, by the way, I need to like take him away, and proving a point that she knows Garrett more in the week that they've spent together than like Kendall's known for the past couple of months that they've been fucking around. We have Justin putting out feelers to Hannah during these chapters, and notes later on like, hey, I've seen you at 2 parties. Twice I've tried to like talk to you or, whatever, and twice you've left with Garrett. So he's paying attention to her, and she's getting some of that feedback during this party. And then, sort of the last big moment, because we've talked about the kiss already, so I'm not going to talk about it. The last big moment that happens is Dean's birthday, which we'll still be talking about next week, but we'll start the conversation here. So first and foremost, Garrett positions himself as a safe harbor for Hannah, and I think that this is where he starts to become an emotionally compelling character and somebody that I can see her wanting to date. Because up until now, being attracted to somebody and then being good to date are two different things, Hannah. Just an FYI. So Hannah's like, you want to get me drunk, basically? And Garrett's like, no, I want to help you see that it's okay to let your guard down sometimes. Look, I'm the Dee tonight, but I'm offering to be more than just your driver. I'll be your bodyguard, your bartender, and most importantly, your friend. I promise to look out for you, Wellesley. So he's offering in this moment to, I just love that, like, to be your bodyguard and your bartender, so that not even the bartender could slip something into your drink, but most importantly, your friend. Like, I just think there's something so endearing about the speech that he gives to her. He articulates a desire to protect her. He's able to create a safe space where she can feel secure enough, which aligns with what she actually needs in these social settings. Ever. And there is always a motherfucking however with Garrett fucking Graham. That sentiment is almost completely undercut when he dismisses her drink of choice, a woman that does not drink often, so she's not supposed to be this like IPA connoisseur. Sorry, buddy. Undercuts her drink of choice by calling it a girly drink. By the way, does girly equate to tasty? Can't fucking stand when men do this. She is already uncomfortable to begin with. You've just promised to be her friend. This is not a comfortable situation for her. This is not something she ever does. And then you undermine her choice of what she's going to drink, which, by the way, like, let her have a girly drink where it's mixed down with juice and other stuff that's going on in there. She doesn't need to be drinking scotch off the rocks, Garrett fucking Graham. And by the way, she's a fucking girl. Like, why can't girls like girly things? And why don't men want girls to like girly things? Why do men want girls to be pick-me's that like manly things? Oh, so if a girl drinks an IPA or a scotch or whatever, she's cool. But if she drinks a Sex on the Beach, she's not? I'd like to see a fucking man drink a fucking martini like that. How about that? You want to know, one martini will knock a man on his fucking ass. And maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. I don't drink anymore. I've been 5 years sober, actually. In 2 days from now, when this episode comes out. So, I don't know. But I'm just saying, men are fucking annoying with this shit. Like, let girls like girly things. Girly things are cool. Anyway, the other thing that I want to say about Garrett kind of pressuring her to drink is that Garrett asking her to drink isn't really about Hannah. It's this weird kink that he has about proving that Hannah can trust him. Noodle on that as you will. The tension between his intention and what he wants to do and impact/action. And you know, I love to talk about impact versus intent. It's one of my favorite things to fucking talk about. His intentions versus the impact of his actions, or his actions in general, become central to understanding his character, because his desire to be perceived as safe doesn't always translate into respecting her boundaries. And that is critical. I'm not saying that he's somebody that's going to rape her, take advantage of her, but I don't necessarily think that it's always about Hannah and putting Hannah first. So as she gets more and more drunk, she decides to perform Bad Romance, Lady Gaga classic song, on karaoke, which serves as a moment of catharsis for her, but also, you know, a way for her talent to come out and for the people around her, Garrett and co., to be able to see how talented she is. The lyrics, of course, mirror her situation with Garrett. I don't want to be friends. You and me could write a bad romance, etc., etc. Pick your line, pick your poison. If they change the song that she sings in this scene in the show, I'm going to be annoyed. Sometimes I get it. It's like a rights thing. They can't get the rights to a song. But I'm just saying, if Project Hail Mary could get Sign of the Times and have somebody do karaoke to it, then I just fucking feel like Amazon Prime could get Bad Romance. The Summer I Turned Pretty had fucking every Taylor Swift song that's ever been recorded. So please and thank you. Then during the the birthday scene, right? We have Garrett and Hannah dancing to Tuesday's Gone by Lynyrd Skynyrd, which introduces a much more tender interaction between Garrett and Hannah, knowing that the song was his mother's favorite song, knowing that this was the song that they played at her funeral, all adds to the emotional weight of this moment, especially since he decides to be vulnerable enough to share this information with Hannah. And just as heart-wrenching is like this true moment of life and humanity and relationships when you are falling in love with somebody, whether you're aware of your falling or not, and you just want to be comforted by that person that you're falling for. So Garrett admitting that it was either dance or bawl my eyes out suggests that Hannah is providing him the same form of comfort that he hasn't found elsewhere, putting her as a source of safety, just the way that he offered to be a safe harbor for her earlier. So now we know it's reciprocal. This emotional thing that they're experiencing together. He gets upset. He goes to the bathroom. He's like, are you going to be okay for a second? Hannah's like, I'm cool. She feels like she should go run after him, like she should say something to him. But what ends up happening is that she runs into Devin the drummer, her ex-boyfriend extraordinaire, and his comment about Hannah working better alone as this catalyst for her to have a drunken spiral, especially because she doesn't drink much. So like, I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Listen, I don't drink anymore because I had such a bad drunken spiral the last time that I drank that I literally woke up and was like, I'm never drinking again. I know people say that all the time after they drink, but I was like, I'm never spiraling like this ever again in my life. This is not me. I was more spiraled than my hair curls right now. I was twisted out, okay? When you're drunk like that, it's easy to get to this place. So Hannah just like having one small trigger on top of the X amount of drinks that she's had so far is like all she needs to push her over the edge. However he meant it, whether it was designed to be a dig, which I kind of took it that way, or whether it was just an observation about her and something that he feels he knows about her from their time that they spent together, it all just reinforces her existing insecurities and it brings her trauma back to the surface, especially as she ruminates on her upcoming date with Justin. So Hannah says, God, why am I crying? I quickly run through all the reasons why I shouldn't be crying. Devin and I are over. I don't want him anymore. I've been fantasizing about someone else for months. I'm going on a date with Justin Cole this weekend. But the reminders achieve nothing, and my eyes sting harder. Because who the fuck am I kidding? What chance do Justin and I possibly have? Even if we go out, even if we get close enough to be intimate, what happens when we have sex? What if all the issues I had with Devin sprout up again, like some annoying rash I can't get rid of? What if there really is something wrong with me and I can never ever have a normal sex life like a normal freaking woman? She has this deep-seated fear that any relationship will ultimately fail because of her inability to have an orgasm. And she starts to tell Garrett what happened. She goes, hostility crawls through me like an army of ants. She's gorgeous, by the way, like really gorgeous. The bitter feeling intensifies, twisting my insides and hardening my jaw. I bet she has orgasms that last for hours and probably screams out, I'm coming, when she's in the throes of passion. She's just like, okay, this is a pornographic view on sex from the male's perspective, right? Like, I bet she has orgasms that last for hours and probably screams, I'm coming, in the throes of passion, is a male's wet dream. This has nothing to do with what actually happens during sex or what's normal during sex. So this idea of her inability to orgasm and the impact that it will have on the ego of any man that she's sleeping with long term becomes the focal point of her spiral. She's tying her sense of self-worth to her sexual experiences. And then she's tying those sexual experiences to the shame of her trauma and this idea that she is failing as a woman or as a romantic partner or a sexual partner. When meanwhile, there is no failing at sex. There's bad sex, but there's no objective win in sex. It's not a sport. It's not like hockey where there's winning and there's losing, like a team clearly comes out on top. This very juvenile and masculine perception that the point of sex is to reach an orgasm so that a man can feel better about himself for making you come is unrealistic and boring. The point of sex is to connect. But to have this idea that the objective of sex is to have this like mind-blowing, I'm coming, throes of passion orgasm every single time you have sex is unrealistic. Sex isn't always like that. Sometimes nobody finishes and it's still great sex. Like this idea that sex as a form of reaching orgasm or like orgasm being the end result has fucking nothing to do with anything. It's boring. This is such a masculine perception on sex, and I just need women to break out of the idea that we have to have an orgasm to have a satisfying sexual experience, or that a man has to have an orgasm to have a satisfying sexual experience, because they don't, and we don't. And that view that there's like a thing to achieve in sex is always going to put you in your head, never in your heart and your body, and it's going to make sex boring. All right, that's our episode for today. Let's crack open the burn book where we will look at the superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award. This award is strictly for the femme and the furious, and it goes to the moment or the quote that really relays the most feminine rage, and it is Hannah feeling 50 Shades of Green over Teresa when she walks into that room. The Shiro Award. This award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering, and it is Bad Romance, Karaoke, Always and Forever, You Have My Heart. I love this scene. I can't wait to see it in the show. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode, and it is kissing Dean right after she kisses Garrett to prove that the kiss meant nothing at all. Speak Your Truth Trophy, best quote or line. It goes to Garrett, who says to Kendall, "Hell, you don't even know my favorite color, and that's the kind of thing you find out in getting to know you 101. Honorary heartthrob, okay, because I'm just a girl, and I want to talk about the most swoon-worthy moments. And it is Garrett calling Hannah multiple times while Justin is asking her out on a date. He doesn't know this. And when she finally does talk to him, he's inviting her to Dean's birthday. And then he says, "You have to come. My midterm grade comes back tomorrow, which means I'll either be celebrating or commiserating. Either way, I want you there." I love this. I just think it's sweet. I think this is such a non-romantic romantic moment that lets you know how somebody feels about you. All right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Femme and Furious. I will be back on Sunday with Margot's Got Money Troubles, episode 4. Then we will be back on Tuesday, Euphoria, season 3, episode 3. Nate and Cassie's wedding. Some shit is going down. I will be back next Friday with chapters 21 through 30. And until then, maybe I'll be in the shower, or peeing, or doing yoga, or streaking naked through the quad. You'll never know. See you on Sunday, babes.